Hey everybody, I wanted to do a video here. It's on the shortest day of the year. It's December 20th, and so we're basically, tonight is the night of the solstice, and I've just been kind of thinking about, I don't know, nature, the outdoors, etc. Really wanting to get outdoors, so this is an opportunity for me to get out and do something. But anyway, making a video here about the Bible and rewilding. And I'm thinking of doing a series about the Bible and rewilding. And I would just like to kind of visit different portions of Scripture and talk about how that reflects on rewilding, or how rewilding fits into that. To start with, though, in this initial video, I do want to make it clear, I do not think that rewilding is like a mandatory subject for Christians. And I don't want anyone to take what I say and kind of go off the rail and get super religious about rewilding when there's no need for that to happen. I believe that Scripture should inform every aspect of our lives, and I believe that we need to be careful to allow our lives to be formed by a relationship with the living God. And what we have in Scripture is the clearest window that we have into who He is and how He wants us to live. So, that said, just make sure that you don't take what I say and interpret it to mean that if you're a Christian, that you have to be a rewilder, or that you have to take on rewilding as a major subject in your life, or anything like that. We all have grace. But for me, I really enjoy the subject of rewilding. I don't know if I could call myself entirely a rewilder, because there's a lot of aspects of my life where I'm not really that active in rewilding those aspects of my life. I would like to be more involved in rewilding different aspects of my life, but the reality is not always the ideal. So with that said, I want to read some Scripture. Why not start at the beginning? So I'm going to start with Genesis. So first of all, we have in the first chapter of Genesis, there are two different creation accounts in Genesis. The first one is a summary creation account that just talks about how, God took 7 days to do creation, and He did it in this sequence, and at the end of every day He called it good. The culmination of that creation sequence on day 6 is the creation of man and woman, of humankind, and then the 7th day He rests. So just real quick, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Indicates that the deep was waters, which is exactly what I would think. So like the earth was just pretty much covered in water, it sounds like. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness He called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." And God made the expanse and separated the waters that were under the expanse from the waters that were above the expanse. And it was so. And God called the expanse heaven, or the skies. And there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. Most of us are very familiar with the cadence of how this goes. So then He gathers the waters together and brings land out of the waters. And that's the third day. And on that day it says, "And God saw that it was good." Then on the fourth day, He calls forth vegetation on the earth, and plants, trees, herbs, and God saw that it was good. And there was morning the third day. So actually, I'm sorry, I was a little wrong in my sequence. This is the third day. So it was when He gathered the waters together, and when He created the vegetation was the third day. Anyway, it's not really the point of my video to go through all of these sequences, but just laying that foundation. So then he places the sun, the moon, and the stars, and in the heavens. That was the fourth day. And then on the fifth day, he creates fish. So he creates fish and water-dwelling creatures. That was the fifth day. And then on the sixth day, let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kind, livestock and creeping things and beasts of the earth according to their kinds. And it was so. And then God said, let us make man in our image and our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens. So this is the basic sequence that we have here. God is going through creation. Now, some people interpret this to mean literal days. These were 24-hour periods, one single rotation of the earth, and in that amount of time, God did that amount of work. And I do believe that God is sovereign, and I do believe that He is powerful, and if He wants to create those things in a 24-hour period, I believe He can. Other people interpret this that when it says day, it's talking about an epoch, or a long period, possibly thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of years. It does say that the evening and the morning, it consistently says the evening and the morning was the first day, the second day. Well, basically starts on the third. So evening and the morning was the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. But still, I'm not into telling you how you should interpret it. I myself am not that stuck on how it must be interpreted. I know some people consider it to be almost heresy to not absolutely adhere to a 24-hour period interpretation. I'm just not that stuck on it. Anyway, so the point that I want to bring out from chapter 1 is that God very specifically creates things, and He creates a natural order that He calls good. This means that every one of these things reflects His mind, His creativity, you could say His heart, His desires. Nature was created in a way that I think is very safe to say that if you look at how it was created, it would reflect the nature of God Himself. Now, a lot of people go into error where they actually kind of place nature into the position of God, and they elevate nature and creation to the highest position, and they don't recognize the Creator as the one who's in the highest position, which He is. But still, we need to recognize that the natural order was created in a way that reflects the nature of God and reflects His desire. So that's just my observations on the first chapter. And I'll probably go ahead and stop there. I was thinking of getting into chapter 2 as well. Chapter 2 is where we begin the second account of creation, and it drills down, it like takes that sixth day and it backs up to just the creation of first man and first woman, named in the Bible as Adam and Eve, and it backs up and it isolates just that narrative, and then in chapter 2 it expands that narrative and says, okay, so now separately we're going to talk about how man and woman were created. We're going to talk about some specific events, and then chapter 3 talks about the fall. Very familiar passage even for people who are not Christians, because I don't know, it seems like everybody likes to talk about that, and everybody thinks it was an apple on the tree. So chapters 2 and 3 I think are going to have to be a different video. So I'm going to pause at chapter 1, and I just want to do a little bit of reflecting on what this means for the Christian rewilder. For me, when I read that, I'm really inspired with the thought that we have information on what God intended when He created the earth. And we have information that shows us the heart of God, the mind of God, the creativity of God, all of these different things. For the rewilder, where the rewilder focuses on trying to return to a more natural state of living. And secular rewilders usually talk about it in the form of evolution to some prior evolutionary state or something like that. Christian rewilders would say that it's more like an effort to return as far to Eden as we can. So what was it? Now, was the entire world Eden? No. Eden was actually a specific garden. It was a specific garden that was set, and that's part of chapter 2, so I don't need to get into that right now. But we talk about return to Eden as in, we understand that to mean trying to dial back some of the impacts that we've adopted into our lives that are unnatural and usually unhealthy. And we're trying to dial some of those things back and get rid of some of those things out of our lives so that they're no longer impacting us in an unhealthy way. And we can definitely say that we have a look at the original order that God wanted to create and what his design was. So for the person who wants to explore rewilding, for the Christian who wants to explore rewilding, I would say first and foremost, get familiar with how God created things, how God intended things to operate. Looking back on this, we can say, God did not create, like cars and airplanes and trains. And I'm not saying those things are bad and that you shouldn't use them. I'm just using them as examples for modern life. God did not create super toxic dryer sheets that we throw into our laundry with every load. God did not God did not create the world with cancer-causing chemicals that we slather all over our bodies to block the sun so that we can't get sunlight on our skin. There's a lot of things that God didn't create in his big, majestic, amazing, and perfect design. There's a whole lot of things he did create. What were they? Explore that. Look at what God's design was. And then start asking yourself, how can I honor God's design in my life? Now, I've mentioned some very specific modern items. I'm not saying that you as a person, you specifically need to give up any one of those specific items. I believe that would be religion. For me to make rules and say, well, you need to give up dryer sheets because they're toxic. I myself wish that my family didn't use dryer sheets, but we do. That's one of the ways in which I'm not rewilded. And I hate them. I think that they're poison. I think that they're absolutely toxic, and they disrupt your endocrine system, and they just do horrible things. But I'm not the final vote on how we do laundry in my house. I'll just put it that way. So, so if I was to make up rules and say you have to give up this, you have to give up that, that's religion. That's just making up rules and trying to cloak it in the name of God and making other people live like me or making other people agree with me. That's just religion, so I don't want to do that. And I don't like religion. So, I guess I just really want to encourage you, if this is a direction that you want to explore, start with Genesis chapter 1. Look at what God created and start asking yourself, how can I honor that creation? You'll never be able to fully return to Eden. You'll never be able to fully return to Genesis chapters 1 and 2. But you can start asking yourself, what did God create and how can I honor his creation in my life? Are there things that I can do that honor him by recognizing the creation that he made and recognizing how it's supposed to work, how it's supposed to function? I know that this is really just kind of high level, just kind of philosophical talk. I'm not diving deep into specifics on how to rewild or giving you specific steps on, 1, 2, 3, 4, congratulations, you're a rewilder. That's not the point of this video. I wanted to explore the scriptures and just start talking about how they can inform or how they can be used reasonably and without twisting them, without making them be a proof text where we just try to pick and choose the scriptures that we like to make a point. No, I want to be able to just look at scriptures for what God intended them to say and then use them to inform my life. And I encourage you to do the same thing. So if you are a rewilder who is being renewed by the transforming of your mind, then I hope that this inspires you to maybe take a fresh look at Scripture and realize that Scripture can inform you in these areas and that you can be absolutely inspired and guided by the Lord Himself and by the Word that He left for us in the Holy Bible, so that on your rewilding path, that path can become richer and much more fulfilling. So I guess that's all I have to say, and thanks for watching.